So welcome to today's MTD CNC podcast. I'm Paul Jones, the founder and managing director of MTDCNC.com, now proudly well into its second decade in existence. Today's lockdown podcast is the fourth one we've commissioned and set to hopefully be the best yet. Joining me in the hot seat this evening at the new time of 8:02 p.m. after the all-important NHS clap is Mr. Giovanni Albanese, who is a time-served engineer, an industry specialist, having spent both years making both parts, and they're still clapping outside, making parts to sell from the shop floor and then subsequently selling products that are used on the shop floor. He's a popular member of the MTD team, known best for his ability to talk and shake hands. Gio, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Brilliant introduction. Thank you.
Secondly, we have Mr. Colin Griffiths, who is a time-served ginger beer, an industry speciality, and a man that would rather shake something else as opposed to someone's hand. But I must add, equally another popular member of the MTD team. So coming up in today's show, one main subject, the up-and-coming Mac 2020 tribute show, which is being aired on May the 5th. Now, hopefully you've seen this across our social media channels. I'll be asking both Colin and Gio what they believe are some of the highlights that you can see next week on the MTD channel. We'll also have a brief week in review where we'll look at some of the highlights that have been in the news on the MTD CNC website. But first, and this is unrehearsed, the other day I bumped into an old colleague, in fact, at a petrol station. I have to say we were over 2 meters apart. And I worked with him back in the 1990s, and he reminded me of an incident that happened whilst I was working on the shop floor. Now, this prompted me to actually start the show this week, but firstly, welcoming you both to the podcast, but asking you for your most embarrassing work stories, guys, something that you'd maybe rather forget or maybe never want to admit to. Now, I'm thinking, Gio, this will probably take you a little bit longer to think of than Colin. So let's start with Colin, and no swearing. And once you're done, I'll tell you mine. But Colin, welcome to the podcast. And let's start with you.
Well, a few things, Paul. Thank you for that very kind introduction.
That's okay.
Yeah, we use those words very, very loosely. I'm a bit in dispute about this being the best podcast yet. Is that because you're running it? Again, I'm going to have to dispute that one. Yeah, radio. And I think there's massive trauma going on because Gio can't shake hands at the moment. I don't know what he's... Poor guy, he's in bloody turmoil. Yeah. What was the question? Oh, anyway, as you know, every week it's Wine Appreciation Night. We're starting a bit later. I didn't, so arrivederci, as they say. But that probably ties in nicely with my story. I as you know, I was in finance. Well, you think, well, Barnett's gone wonky. That's because of lockdown. But I got promoted to a manager, and we had this induction thing, and it was a days long thing. In the evening, they hosted a few drinks and a bit of a meal, and a few more drinks, and at about 9:30, my new boss said to me, "Do you think taking a bit, having a few too many there?" No, I'm fine. Anyway, so my boss was there, his boss was there, Les' boss was there, but his boss was there. So in a pecking order, so me, him. So this guy was fairly high up, and then anyway, I don't remember much the night after that. The next morning, it transpired that, "Oi, Martin, what you got to say? Actually, talk to that, mate. I'm not listening. You're not interested in me. I'm off." And it was quite rude. There was a hint of puke in the bedroom when I woke up the next morning. So that was on the Thursday. Friday I was a bit as rough as a badger's crack, to be honest. Monday I get the phone call from my boss. My office, 4:00 this afternoon. You know why? And I got a A4 letter saying about my inappropriate behaviour. I didn't get sacked though. I resigned before they sacked me.
Why am I not surprised that there was some alcohol involved in that story there, Colin? And you didn't learn your lesson, obviously. Gio, what about you? Welcome to the podcast. Let's hear from one of your stories.
Good evening, Paul. Good evening, Colin. Colin, that story don't surprise me whatsoever. Paul, you've gone up in my pecking order in regards to potential best men for my wedding, which should have been this in May, actually. That'd be. I reckon you'd give a perfect best man speech.
Who's our invite?
But we haven't sent the invites out yet, Colin. It's been postponed, not like Mac. Yeah, as you can imagine, I've got so many stories that of me doing bad things. And one that does spring to mind was when I was an apprentice. The joke usually was on me, and you know what it's like when you're an apprentice. You know, there's lots of different jokes going around every day. You've got to be like the SAS. You've got to have eyes in the back of your head. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what occurred, but one day something did happen to me. And I thought to myself, right, I'm going to get this guy back. I knew who did it. So he always used to come in late in the morning. So I thought, I'll get in early. I'll do an hour's overtime. I'll get into the factory early. Got in there early. He wasn't there. He used to always come in late. And I used to knew where he used to sit in the canteen. And I had a brilliant idea to put brown sauce into his work boots. Obviously I'll go onto my machine, get my hours overtime, and I can enjoy the pleasure of seeing him walk into the shop floor with these shoes on. So I went and done the deed, and went to start work on my machine, with, you know, quite proudly and in the confidence that I'd get him. Anyway, he finally come into work, went into the canteen, walked out of the canteen normally, and I was a little bit surprised and couldn't figure out why he was still kind of not realised that he had ketchup in his boots. So anyway, I just continued with work. And then the next minute, my foreman, boss, whoever you'd want to call him at the time, walked out of the canteen absolutely in dismay about like brown sauce being in his boots. So I could feel myself burning up, going red. And to this day, he never knew it was me. So you know who you are. And if you're watching this podcast, I am sincerely sorry.
So if he's watching this now, he now knows the culprit and who it was.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Incredible story.
Sorry.
Gent, I'll be quick.
Mention his name.
Yeah, what was his name, yeah?
Bill.
What, William? Yeah. Now I'll be quick, gentlemen, with mine. Basically, and the story goes, I bumped into this guy back in 1996. England were in, I think it was the World Cup quarterfinals with Germany. Was it? No, it's before the quarterfinals. No, it was the quarterfinal, the semi-final with Germany. We lost the semi-final, and I worked night shift. And basically, my idea was that I'd taken a night off to go and watch the game in the town near where I worked, which was a mistake. So I decided once we lost, I'd go in to do and only have half a day's holiday instead of a full day's holiday, and I'd go in at 11:30 when the pub shut, and of course go and operate heavy machinery. Of course, what a mistake you could make. But I didn't actually get that far, because I did get into the machine shop and I actually found this staircase, and I actually got to the top of that and then fell asleep. I was woke up by the foreman wrapped in an England flag at 2:30 in the morning. Needless to say, he sent me home. But like you, Colin, I didn't get a verbal warning or a written warning, so I managed to get away with that one. But I was reminded of it the other day. Anyway, let's move on, gentlemen. So I want to... Firstly, I want to pick up on before we get stuck into the Mac tribute show, which is going to happen next Tuesday. I just want to touch on briefly a week in review. It's been a week since we last spoke via a podcast. There's been quite a few stories on MTD CNC. Maybe one at a time. I could cover it off with yourself first, Colin. Anything interesting that's happened? Not just maybe on news on MTD this week, but with you.
Well, I think it's definitely 100%, to quote Gio's phrase, 100% spot on. Cracking. Captain Tom, 100 today. They had a fly past, everything like that. He's now Colonel Tom. He's raised over £30 million. And that is, I know it's not engineering, but that is absolutely amazing news. It was all over the TV today. It was absolutely fantastic. It actually, I know, bit of a lad, whatever. It did bring a tear to my eye, only because I wasn't concentrating. I walked in the door and stubbed my toe.
And what about news on the website? Anything industry specific?
Industry specific, if I can say that, because as you know, it is a gin and tonic appreciation night right now, because we've run out of wine on lockdown. I think Leader Chuck, they were going to be at Mac, obviously 5 new products in their portfolio, because they are work holding masters. They've got every solution you could ever want for work holding. A few of the things they were going to be promoting, but they're actually showcasing now still. So they've actually got the distribution rights for Layman rotary tables, which are fantastic rotary tables. Great. I mean, they look fantastic, but great rotary tables. Orange Vice, well known around the world. They also distribute those. They've got the Delta pallet system now as well, which is really, really fantastic. KTA is checking my notes here just to make sure I'm right. Spindle tooling. 5 new products and loads more. I won't say any more than that, but just there's an article on MTD News about that. Great work from Mark Jones, Leader Chuck International.
Okay, Gio, what about you? Picked up anything interesting?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of great news stories on the MTD CNC website this week, and we've talked a lot about automation, Industry 4.0, and digitalization, and these being some of the key aspects moving forward. However, I picked up on a great story from a pal, and it's never been so important really in regards to when making components quickly is so important. Now, they've just introduced a new face mill diamond for high volume work, PCD. Now, this is polycrystalline diamond to be exact, before you ask me, Colin. But in regards to this particular new face mill tool, some of the benefits that are achievable from this tool are just absolutely unbelievable. And it beggars belief that these tools are not being more commonly used. Now, I'll just go into some of the details in regards to the benefits from this tool. So obviously when cutting material removal rates are absolute key. Now, you wouldn't really, or I didn't personally, associate diamond cutting tools with big depths of cut. But this particular tool has got a maximum cutting depth of 10 millimeters. The body absorbs vibration, and I always bang on about vibration, whether that's something to do with the work holding, the spindle, the robustness and rigidity of the machine tool. Vibration is a killer, and it's something that needs to be eradicated. Now, also the positioning of the coolant outlets per insert. The coolant is coming through the cutting tool, and it's squirting directly in the position where the insert is removing the material. Now, this is massive because one, for the chip removal, but keeping the inserts lubricated to give additional tool life. But one thing that was absolutely remarkable, it actually gave a application example of where they did a case study on a wheel carrier application. Now, this particular company, which it didn't mention, done 600,000 parts per year. Now, exponential growth is something that's been, if I've pronounced that correctly, something that's been mentioned quite frequently on the news through to coronavirus. But this tool has increased the tool life from 3,000 parts to 40,000 parts. And I mean, the savings in that is just astronomical. I think this is a story, if you're an engineer and you're looking to make more money effectively, you need to read that story. Simple as that, really.
Good stuff, Gio. Okay, so that story's on MTD CNC along with what Colin's talking about, Leader Chuck. Colin, you got another point you wanted to make?
Just very quickly, Gio, you are correct. I was going to say, what is PCD, but you got me on that one, because I didn't actually know. Anyway, 10 mil depth of cut, that's amazing. But I know I was chatting with the guys at Citizen. They were doing 10 mil depths of cut on their sliders with the LFE technology. It's exponential, by the way.
Thanks.
Anyway, it's all about education. Paul, sorry to interrupt.
So those stories on the website. Also, a couple more before we move on. The Manufacturing Technologies Association have launched their 2020 edition of the TDI Challenge, which is the Technology Design and Innovation Challenge. But this year it's going to be online. The challenge is for the youth, for school individuals to basically submit this year a 2-minute presentation on a design that they've developed right the way through to manufactured. Normally, in fact, years gone by, we've been to those at Mazak, but this year it's going to be housed online, so that's interesting. FANUC, in collaboration with Birmingham-based Robopod, have launched their iTend. There's videos of that on the MTD CNC website. It's an automation solution added to the Robo Drill. There's various stories as well about Radan software, and also the fact that XYZ have introduced a machine with a with an additional riser block for a Z-axis to assistant engineer. And I know there's also another one, a good story from Fast Stems on some software, Colin. But I'm gonna move on because I know we are pressed for time, and I really want to get into the Mac show that's going to happen on Tuesday. So the Mac 2020 tribute show. Now, there's a roundabout we were doing today. Lindsay was at the studio today. We were doing some preparation for the event, some trailers for the event, and of course putting the final showcase together. It's going to come out on Tuesday. There is a dedicated website for this actual for this exercise. I want to ask you guys, you've been as deeply involved as I have. We've all been talking to our customers about what they were taking to Mac. Now it's been postponed till January, what they were going to show at the show in April. Just a few of your highlights. I know we've kind of watched everybody's now. There's around about 50 videos that we're going to publish. We'll start with yourself this time, Gio. What is some of the things that you've looked at that you believe are reasons why people should tune in next Tuesday?
I think for me, what really stuck out through just the videos that I've been producing for this montage is a video that I've produced for a new client of MTD, and that's SolidCam. SolidCam are a CAD CAM provider, and it's something that me personally, I'm still learning a lot about. I used to do a lot of my programming directly into the machine tool, but they've brought out two new pieces of software. Now, CAD-CAM is something that never really used to get associated with Swiss-type machine sliding head machinery because obviously the volumes were so high, it wasn't that important how long it took you to do the program because it was, didn't really matter due to the fact that the machine could be running for days. But now that sliding heads are being used for lower volume work, production work, lower batches, there is a massive requirement to do the programming a lot faster. And subsequently, SolidCam have brought out this software that simplifies the programming. They've got some fantastic features for the fifth axis, full simultaneous programming on a sliding head. And I'm not going to give it all away, Paul, but it's that interesting that we've decided to do two technical corners on this particular software. And it's something that's quite unique to the UK market. So I would strongly recommend that anyone watching this program now definitely watches the program and keep an eye out for SolidCam in this montage.
Okay, we'll go to Colin next. Colin, anything from you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to all the guys in the back. I mean, we get to be the face of these podcasts and the videos and things like that. All the guys in the background, Chris, Joff, and all the other guys. And if I don't mention Will, and anybody else I don't mention, Steve, Reese, Adam, they've done an absolutely fantastic. We're all working from home and stuff like that. But to bring this Mac show together has been absolutely phenomenal. Really has. It's absolutely brilliant. So you're going to have to watch the show. Oh, Lindsay, of course, the hostess with the lease test. But anyway, absolutely going to be a fantastic show. A couple of things that stand out for me were ABB. They've actually got a virtual stand that they would have had at Mac, and it's got all their machines on there, and it's got details of what they are. So the FP300, for example, was a machine robot tending for deburring, so you're not getting to get your RSI or your white finger or wherever it might be. And they've actually linked that to one of our videos, which is great. The FP800 is actually picking up big castings, and I did pick Matt Rollins from ABB picked it up, and I thought that's not that heavy. He's obviously got much bigger guns than I have because they were flipping heavy. Let's just say, leave it at that one. But this one picks them up, puts them to the machine tool, takes them off once machine, stacks them, and not just stacks them in one layer, stacks them in boxes and things like that. So really sort of sophisticated piece of machinery. But you can see this all in the virtual exhibition stand, which is really, really brilliant. Now the next one as well is Citizen. We got a virgin on the program, if I can say that. Now, not you two, obviously. It was Warren Garrett. He's one of the salesmen from Citizen. All the other guys are really busy. And he was actually very nervous, but he was great when he came on the show. He really was. And he just talked about that they've got a load of new machines that they were going to show at Mac. Obviously, that they are available now. A couple of those, the M32 Series 5, so obviously the fifth generation of this machine. It's a slider, but it's an absolute beast. It really is. It's got a full 5-axis simultaneous machining. So essentially, to quote Chris Downham, who's one of their application guys, you can make whatever you like. There is no restriction. The only restriction is your imagination on these machines. It really is. And they can go it's a 32 mil, but it will go up to 38 mil. It will take 60 tools on a turret. 6 tools 10 station, 6 tools per turret, which is, just to clarify, 60. So it's an absolute beast of a machine, it really is. And then another one of the machines that they've got is, I'm thinking, you're going sliders up to about 32, well, about 38, 40 mil, fixed head. Well, their biggest one at the moment is about 65 mil. They're launching, if I can say that properly, the ABX 80, so 80 mil fixed head lathe. So that's coming through the bore. Obviously, it's going to take big on the chuck, but just another beast of machine, solid casting. I think, and don't quote me on this one, weighs 12 tons. No rude comments there, Paul or Gio, by the way, but it's just a solid machine. And you're talking about 12 mil depth of cut with your PCD, but this is just an absolute phenomenal machine. Super fast, super accurate, and big cuts, tricky materials. There you go. That's me. Paul,
okay, good stuff. We'll come back to Gio as well. You must have a couple more before we do. You're right, Colin. Matthew Rollins has bigger guns than you, but bless you, Gio. Yeah, Matthew Rollins has bigger guns than you, but you do have a bigger chin.
Bigger hair.
Bigger hair. In fact, what is that on your chin?
I'm off. I don't do this.
No, not that chin. Gio, anything else? You've done a lot this week. There must be something else you've got up your sleeve.
Yeah, I think that touching upon what we've talked upon for the last few weeks, automation seems to be a theme. And when we say automation, automation is for all of the other equipment that goes with the complete process. So, the work holding, for example, Microlock were going to launch a prototype fifth axis vice that had automation in mind. Now, this is something that's really, really exciting. And again, watch the video next week. Hydrofeed, long bar feeder for fixed head machines, which went up to a capacity of 100 mil to feed 100 mil bar through the spindle bore of the fixed head machine, 3 meters in length. So that was another automated solution. And Heimbach, they've got lots of, all their work holding now is all geared around automation. So you can automate the changeovers of the collets. So effectively, previously in the past, not too long ago, when you thought about automation, it was only about automating the actual component, but you wouldn't think about automating the setup overnight, especially. So say, for example, you were looking to run smaller batches on a sliding head or fixed head lathe with a bar feeder. You can now also change the setups as well overnight, just by simply changing the collets. And they've got a lot of Industry 4.0 products that are communicating with the machine tool, the work holding, how fast the chuck's spinning, the clamping force that's being achieved. Some really clever stuff. And again, I can't express enough how much people need to watch this show, because there's stuff that I've been learning doing these videos that I never knew before. So, it's definitely going to be an education.
There was a few that I was going to touch on. Firstly, on the automation front, there's the Fanuc new CRX robot, which I reviewed, in fact, a few weeks ago, which is a cobot, easy to program. It's got a touchscreen pendant. You can use it in conjunction with an iPad, dead easy drag and drop software. Herco cobot, which can be put onto any of the Herco machines, a VMC, a lathe, very small footprint. Again, easy to program. The beauty of the Herco control is it has evolved by being a very simple platform to use. And in fact, talking about Herco's lathes that they've introduced, their TM range that's coming on at Mac. Again, they've developed those machines as a result of the success of the machining centres. And then the final one I was going to mention was the Goering. I was watching one that Joe did with Goering. I don't know whether you guys have seen this. I'm not a major cutting tool specialist, but I was looking at the RT100XF drill that Dave was talking to Joe about, and I couldn't believe the depth of drilling and the speed it drilled. When you watched it in slow motion, it was almost like, I reckon it was going about 10 mil depth and revolving just once. So it's the best way to describe the operation. It was almost like, one turn and this thing was going down 10 or 20 mil. I don't know how it managed to, and it can do this on harder materials as well. And they also had their thread mill, their new thread mill, which they are going to be taking to the show, which drills, thread mills and chamfers all at once in materials up to 66 Rockwell. Now, how good is that? You don't need to buy different size drills, different size taps, you just do everything in one. So I was really impressed to see those. But just to reiterate, the show that is actually coming out on the 5th of May is going to house everything we've discussed here, but so much more. I can't express enough how pleased I am with what we've done in recent times. We've also got things, Colin, about the ultrasonic. I'll come back to you, mate. The ultrasonic tooling from HiFor. You remember the video you did, Colin, at Timtos with that gentleman on the Quasar machine with the peening tool. He was peening. Yes. That tooling is now available from HiFor in the UK, and the size of holes that you can do with that and the operation, it's all very, very impressive. All to be seen on May the 5th. Colin, go for it.
I'm not sort of doing other things here when I'm looking down here. I'm making notes because a number of very, very quick things. I know Leader Chuck have got an automated solution changing chucks throughout the night, which is great. We did that one when we were at, it's on MTD CNC. We did that at Timtos last year in Taiwan, obviously before the lockdown. I've only been in the industry about 5 years, you could probably tell. But since that time, we've all mentioned about automation, especially robots, things like that. Just phenomenal, because when I first joined, there was no discussion of robots. Now, pretty much every machine tool company's got some type of some type of robot. They really have, very quickly. That peening, I think it was 60,000 of those per second or something. Just a phenomenal amount. And then finally, Paul, what's Rockwell? What is a Rockwell?
It's a band. From the States, Ohio.
Tumbleweed.
It's been an absolute pleasure hosting this one this evening. But before we do go, I do want to ask one final thing. In amongst that conversation I had the other day with my compatriot at the petrol station, he said to me, he knows what we do. He'd seen some of the videos and what have you, and he says, "Do you ever get any embarrassing situations? Do you ever get into situations where you go, oh my God, that was so embarrassing?" We all interview, people. Okay, not at the moment every day of the week, but I'm sure in weeks to come we will be. Guys, anything that strikes you this year that the audience should know about that you found embarrassing? We'll start with you.
Normally that one.
We'll start with you, Colin.
No, that's it. No, I think I've learned there's a little checklist before you actually go on camera. Know the person's name, because Stuart, all the way through, I mean, the hour-long conversation beforehand, blah, blah, just about finished the interview. My name's Simon. And then always check for a bat in the cave. Never know when it's going to happen. Always do the fringe. You two are all right on that one. And the flies. Never do an interview with the flies open. Oh.
So have you encountered any of those situations this year? Because I was actually going to say that was going to be one of the points I'd mentioned, and it was in relation to
you. Of those 4 situations this year, there's been 5.
Gio?
Well, Colin, what situation? What 5 situations? What was the issue in them 5?
No, you dipstick. I was joking. Bats in the cave, flies undone, wrong name. I can't remember that. Oh, keep up, Gio, honestly.
All at the same time. There was a time.
I've probably had lots of embarrassing situations. I can't really think of wrong name is probably the most common one. But obviously, as you both know, I can't pronounce my H's. So if anyone's name's got a H in that can be quite embarrassing. But
and it was because you went to interview Harry Hammock at Herco, didn't you?
Yeah, but he was at Huddersfield as well. But when you say you got it Wong, it was lucky because he was over from China and it was actually Mr. Wong.
I've got to admit though, it is most probably in the genes, because my little Nico, he don't pronounce his H's either, which is quite funny and amusing at the minute. But
I thought he was called Hiko. Gents, we're going to leave it on that. We've just about run out of time. We're almost at our 30-minute mark. We like to close it off at 30 minutes. It has been an enjoyable, and hopefully it was the best yet. Who knows? I'm sure people will comment. And I'm sure we'll try and do even better next week. Don't forget, tune in on Tuesday, May the 5th. We are going to be having our Mac 2020 tribute show. It really is going to be something to watch. In fact, over the past few weeks, we have been working relentlessly to make sure that you guys don't miss out as engineers as to what was going to be happening at MAC 2020. It's been fully supported by the MTA. In fact, on the show, we have the CEO, James Selker. He'll be joining us and talking to us about what's going to also be happening at the event in January 2021. Join us again for a live lockdown podcast, same time next week at 8:02. Plenty of podcasts in between, so keep tuned to MTD CNC.
Thanks for listening to the MTD Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.